The dust had barely settled from her horse's hooves when Elliot Garrison looked up from the fence post he was mending and saw a woman slumped in her saddle, one arm hanging at an unnatural angle, her face pale as moonlight despite the harsh August sun beating down on the rangeland outside Walla Walla, Washington Territory. It was 1878, and the summer heat had turned everything golden and brittle. Elliot dropped his hammer and ran toward her, his long strides eating up the distance between them as her mare nickered nervously, sensing something wrong with its rider. The woman's eyes were glassy with pain, her jaw clenched so tight he could see the muscles working beneath her skin. She wore a simple cotton dress, now dusty and stained with what looked like blood from a cut on her forehead, and her dark hair had come loose from its pins, hanging in tangled waves around her shoulders. "Easy now," Elliot said, reaching up to steady her. "I have got you." She tried to speak, but only managed a small sound, somewhere between a gasp and a whimper. Up close, he could see she was young, maybe 23 or 24, with features that would have been striking if they were not currently twisted in agony. Her broken arm was swelling badly, the forearm bent where it should have been straight. "Can you dismount?" he asked gently. She nodded, though the movement seemed to cost her. Elliot helped her down, supporting her weight as her feet touched the ground. Her legs buckled and he caught her, one arm around her waist, careful not to jostle the injured limb. "My name is Elliot Garrison," he said, keeping his voice calm and steady. "You are at the Double G Ranch, about 5 miles west of Walla Walla. Can you walk to the house?" "I think so," she managed, her voice hoarse. "I am sorry to impose. No imposition. Come on." He guided her slowly across the yard toward the ranch house, a sturdy building of timber and stone that his father had built 20 years earlier. The place was quiet this time of day, most of the hands out with the cattle, his father in town on business. That was probably for the best. His father had strong opinions about strangers, and this woman clearly needed help without questions getting in the way. Inside, the house was cool and dim after the brightness outside. Elliot led her to the kitchen table and pulled out a chair. "Sit here. Let me look at that arm." She lowered herself carefully into the seat, cradling her injured arm against her body. Now that they were out of the sun, he could see her more clearly. She had dark eyes, the color of strong coffee, and despite the obvious pain, there was something fierce in her gaze, a determination that made him think she had not come here by accident or luck alone. "What is your name?" he asked, moving to the basin to wash his hands. "Amelia," she said. "Amelia Wright." "Well, Miss Wright, I need to set that bone. It is going to hurt considerably, but if we do not do it soon, it will heal wrong and you will never have full use of that arm again." She nodded, her face somehow going even paler. "I understand." Elliot had set bones before. Growing up on a ranch, you learn to do all sorts of things that city folk left to doctors. He had set his own broken collarbone at 16 after being thrown from a horse, had helped his father set a ranch hand's leg after a nasty fall 3 years back. But doing it to a stranger, a woman who had ridden onto his property already injured and frightened, felt different somehow. He gathered what he needed: clean cloths, a bottle of whiskey, straight pieces of wood for splints, strips of leather to bind them. When he returned to the table, Amelia was watching him with those dark eyes, and he saw that she understood exactly what was coming. "Do you want something for the pain first?" he asked, holding up the whiskey bottle. "Yes, please." He poured a generous amount into a tin cup and handed it to her. She drank it down in 3 swallows, barely flinching at the burn. That told him something about her, though he was not sure what yet. "I need you to tell me how this happened," Elliot said, pulling another chair close and sitting down so they were at eye level. "Before I said it, I need to know." Amelia looked away, focusing on something beyond his shoulder. I fell from my horse. No, you did not. His voice was gentle but firm. That is a defensive fracture. You put your arm up to protect yourself from something or someone. Her jaw tightened again, and for a moment he thought she would not answer. Then she looked back at him, and he saw something raw in her expression, something that made his chest tighten with an emotion he could not quite name. "My husband," she said quietly. "My late husband. He died 3 days ago." Elliot studied her face, reading the layers of meaning in those simple words. This happened before he died. Yes. And his death was not natural. She met his gaze steadily. He was thrown from his horse while drunk, broke his neck in the fall. There were witnesses. The sheriff said it was an accident. But this happened before that. 2 days before. Amelia's voice was steady now, matter of fact, as though she were reporting the weather. He came home drunk, as he often did. I had not prepared his supper the way he liked. He took exception to that. Elliot felt a familiar anger rising in his chest, the kind that made his hands want to curl into fists. He had seen this before. New men who treated their wives like property, like animals to be beaten when they did not perform as expected. His own father, for all his faults, had never raised a hand to Elliot's mother before she died. The thought of someone breaking this woman's arm over a meal made him want to ride out and find the man, dead or not. "I am sorry," he said and meant it. "Do not be. He is gone now and I am free." She said it with such simple conviction that he believed her. There was no grief in her voice, only relief. "All right then." Elliot rolled up his sleeves. "Let me see the arm." She extended it slowly, and he examined the break carefully, his fingers gentle as they probed the swollen flesh. She inhaled sharply but did not pull away. It was a clean break, which was fortunate. The bones had not pierced the skin, and if he could set them properly, she would heal without complications. "I am going to pull the bones back into alignment," he explained, still in that calm, steady voice. "It will hurt more than anything you have felt, but only for a moment. Then I will splint it and the worst will be over. Do you understand?" "Yes." "I need you to stay as still as possible. Can you do that?" "Yes." He positioned himself, one hand above the break, one below. "On 3. 1, 2. He pulled on 2, quick and decisive, feeling the bones slide back into place with a sensation that made his stomach turn. Amelia cried out, a sharp sound of pure agony, and tears spilled down her cheeks. But she did not jerk away, did not fight him. She sat rigid in the chair, breathing hard through her nose, while he quickly positioned the splints and began wrapping them with the leather strips. "The worst is over," he said softly, working quickly but carefully. "You did well. Many grown men would have passed out from that." She laughed, a small, breathless sound. "I have had worse pain and survived it." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Elliot finished securing the splint and sat back, looking at her. Tears were still running down her face, but she was not sobbing, just letting them fall. There was something dignified about it, something that made his heart ache. "You should rest," he said. "The guest room is upstairs. You can stay as long as you need." "I cannot impose on your hospitality like that. It is not an imposition. You are injured and you have nowhere else to go, or you would have gone there instead of here." She studied him for a long moment, those dark eyes searching his face for something. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she nodded slowly. "Thank you. I will repay your kindness." "No need." Elliot stood and offered her his good hand. "Can you walk?" "I think so. The whiskey is helping." He helped her to her feet and guided her upstairs, moving slowly to accommodate her unsteady gait. The guest room was simple but clean, with a bed covered in one of his mother's quilts, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the range island. The late afternoon sun was painting everything in shades of gold and amber. "Rest now," Elliot said. "I will bring you some food later." "Thank you," Amelia said again. She sat on the edge of the bed, looking suddenly exhausted. "You are very kind." He left her there and went back downstairs, his mind churning. Something about this woman had gotten under his skin in the space of an hour. Maybe it was the way she had borne the pain without complaint. Maybe it was the story written in that broken arm, the tale of survival against odds that should have broken her spirit along with her bones. Or maybe it was something simpler, more dangerous. The way his heart had jumped when she looked at him with those coffee-dark eyes. Elliot shook his head, trying to clear it. He had work to do. The fence still needed mending, the horses needed feeding, and his father would be back from town before dark. He needed to figure out what to tell the old man about their unexpected guest. But first, he went back outside and tended to Amelia's mare, a pretty bay with good lines and careful breeding, not the kind of horse a poor woman would ride. He unsaddled her, rubbed her down, and led her to the stable, where he gave her water and feed. The saddlebags yielded a few personal items: a change of clothes, a small leather purse with some coins, and a worn Bible. Nothing that told him much more about Amelia Wright, except that she had left wherever she came from in a hurry, with only the essentials. The sun was low on the horizon when his father returned, riding up the main path with his usual stern expression. Thomas Garrison was 62, weathered by decades of hard work and harder winters, with gray hair and a gray mustache and eyes that missed nothing. He spotted the unfamiliar horse in the stable immediately. "Whose animal is that?" he asked, dismounting with the stiffness of age. "A woman rode in this afternoon," Elliot said carefully. "She was injured. I set her broken arm and offered her the guest room." Thomas's eyes narrowed. "What woman?" "Her name is Amelia Wright. She said her husband died a few days ago. She has nowhere else to go. We are not a boarding house for every drifter that comes along." "She is not a drifter, Pa. She is hurt and alone. What would you have me do, turn her away to die on the trail?" Thomas grunted, which was as close to agreement as he usually got. "She can stay a few days, then she moves on. We have our own troubles without taking on someone else's." "Yes, sir." That night, Elliot brought Amelia a plate of bread, cold beef, and beans. She was sitting up in bed when he entered, looking stronger than she had that afternoon, though her face was still drawn with pain. "How do you feel?" he asked, setting the plate on the small table beside the bed. "Like I was trampled by cattle," she said, but there was a hint of humor in her voice. "The arm throbs, but it is bearable. That is good. It will hurt worse tomorrow, but after that it should start to improve." He hesitated, then added, "My father is back. He says you can stay a few days." "Only a few. He is not the most hospitable man, but do not worry. A few days will turn into a week or more if I have anything to say about it. You need time to heal." Amelia picked up the fork with her good hand and took a small bite of food. "Why are you being so kind to me? You do not know me." "I could be anyone." Elliot considered the question. "I suppose because everyone deserves kindness, especially when they are hurting, and because I know what it is like to feel alone. You do not seem alone. You have your father, this ranch. My mother died 5 years ago, fever. And my father, well, he is not much for conversation or comfort. We work the ranch together, but it is not the same as having family. I am sorry about your mother, and I am sorry about your husband, though I suspect you are not." That surprised a small smile out of her. "You are perceptive." "No, I am not sorry he is dead. Does that make me terrible?" "No. It makes you honest." They talked for a while longer, carefully avoiding the painful subjects, discussing instead the beauty of the Washington Territory, the growth of Walla Walla, the way the wheat fields turned gold in summer. Elliot found himself relaxing in her presence, the conversation flowing easily in a way it rarely did with anyone else. When he finally left her to rest, he felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Each morning, Elliot would check on Amelia, bringing her breakfast and examining her arm to make sure it was healing properly. She was a good patient, following his instructions without complaint, though he could see the frustration in her eyes when she tried to do simple tasks and found herself hindered by the splint. On the third day, she insisted on coming downstairs. "I cannot stay in bed forever," she said when he protested. "I will go mad from boredom. Let me at least sit in the parlor or help with some light work." He could not argue with that logic, so he helped her navigate the stairs and settled her in the parlor with some mending. His father was out on the range, which was probably for the best. Thomas had been making pointed comments about charity cases and women who show up with stories that set Elliot's teeth on edge. While Amelia worked on the mending, Elliot found himself inventing reasons to be nearby. He cleaned his rifle in the parlor instead of the barn. He reviewed the ranch's account books at the desk in the corner. He brought her tea and fresh water, asked if she needed anything, until finally she laughed and said, "I am fine, Elliot. You do not need to hover over me like a mother hen." He felt his face heat. "Sorry, I just want to make sure you are all right." "I am more than all right. In fact, I feel better than I have in years." She set down the mending and looked at him with those dark eyes. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why have you never married?" "You are, what, 28, 29? 27, he said. "And I suppose I never found the right woman. The daughters of the ranchers around here, they are nice enough, but we never had much in common. And my father is particular about who would be suitable." What would he consider suitable? Someone who can work hard, bear sons, and not complain. Someone who knows her place. He said it flatly, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. "Ah, and you want something different. I want a partner. Someone I can talk to who talks back. Someone who sees me as more than a means to an end." He stopped, surprised at his own honesty. "Sorry, I should not burden you with this." "It is not a burden. I understand more than you know." Amelia picked up the mending again, her fingers working the needle with surprising skill despite the handicap of one arm. "My husband wanted a servant, not a wife. Someone to cook and clean and warm his bed and never have an opinion or a thought of her own. When I dared to disagree with him or suggest a different way of doing things, he would remind me of my place, first with words, then with his fists." Elliot felt that anger rising again, hot and bitter. "How long were you married?" 3 years. "We met in Portland." "He was charming at first, attentive and sweet. I thought I was lucky. My father had died the year before, and I had no other family, no prospects. Jacob seemed like a gift." Her voice was steady, but he could hear the old pain beneath it. "The mask came off after the wedding. By then it was too late." "You could have left." "Where would I go? A woman alone with no money, no family. The law would not have helped me. A husband has the right to discipline his wife as he sees fit. Everyone knows that." She set down the mending again and met his eyes. "So I stayed and I survived, and I told myself that someday it would end. I just did not know how." "You did not," Elliot stopped, unsure how to ask the question, "kill him?" "No, though I thought about it more times than I can count. But as I said, he was drunk and his horse threw him and he broke his neck in the fall. There were 3 witnesses, all ranch hands who worked for our neighbor. The sheriff ruled it an accident." She paused. "I sold everything I could and left the next day. I did not want to be there when people started asking questions or expecting me to grieve." "Where were you headed?" "Anywhere. I just pointed the horse east and rode until I could not ride anymore. Then I saw your ranch, and I thought maybe I could ask for water or directions to town. I did not expect kindness. I certainly did not expect this. She gestured around the room, encompassing the house, the care he had given her, the safety she had found here. Elliot felt something shift in his chest, like a door opening that had been locked for years. "You are welcome here as long as you want to stay," he said quietly. "Your father will not agree to that. Then I will convince him, or I will find you a place in town, somewhere safe, until you decide what you want to do next." "Why?" Amelia asked, and there was genuine confusion in her voice. "Why do you care so much about what happens to me?" Elliot opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. Because the true answer was too new, too fragile, too dangerous to speak aloud. Because in 3 days this woman had become important to him in a way no one else ever had. Because when he looked at her, he saw strength and courage, and a spirit that had been battered but not broken. Because he wanted to know everything about her, wanted to hear her thoughts on every subject, wanted to make her smile and hear her laugh and protect her from anyone who would ever try to hurt her again. But he could not say any of that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "Because it is the right thing to do," he said finally, and hated himself for the cowardice of it. If Amelia sensed the deeper truth, she did not press him. She just nodded and returned to her mending. And Elliot went back to pretending to review the account books while actually watching her from the corner of his eye, memorizing the way the afternoon light caught in her dark hair, the concentration on her face as she worked, the subtle signs that she was, perhaps for the first time in years, beginning to relax. That evening, Thomas confronted him while Amelia was upstairs resting. "The woman needs to move on," his father said without preamble. "We have been charitable, but we are not running a hospital. She can go to town, find work as a seamstress or a cook. Her arm is broken, Pa. She cannot work yet. Then she can go to the church. Let them deal with her." "No." The word came out harder than Elliot intended. "She stays until she is healed. I will take responsibility for her." Thomas's eyes narrowed. "You are getting attached to her." "I am helping someone in need. The way Ma would have wanted. Your mother had too soft a heart. It got her into trouble more than once." Thomas stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "Fine. She can stay another week, but after that she goes. I will not have some widow taking advantage of your good nature." After his father stomped off to bed, Elliot sat alone in the parlor, staring into the dying fire. A week. He had 1 week to figure out what to do, how to convince Amelia to stay, or how to let her go without feeling like he was losing something precious. The next morning, he woke early and went to check on the horses, trying to clear his head. The August dawn was cool and quiet, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold. He was brushing down his gelding when he heard footsteps behind him and turned to find Amelia standing in the stable doorway. She was wearing the clean dress she had packed, a simple blue cotton that brought out the darkness of her eyes, and her hair was braided over one shoulder. The splint on her arm looked incongruous against the feminine softness of the dress, a reminder of everything she had survived. "You are up early," Elliot said. "I could not sleep. I kept thinking about what I should do next." She moved into the stable, running her good hand along the neck of her mare. "I cannot stay here forever. Your father made that clear enough last night. I could hear you two talking. He will come around." "No, he will not, and I do not want to cause trouble between you." Amelia looked at him over the horse's back. "I have been thinking I should go into Walla Walla, try to find work. Maybe the hotel needs kitchen help or someone needs a governess with a broken arm. I can manage simple tasks, and the arm will heal. Not for another 5 or 6 weeks." Elliot set down the brush and came around to stand beside her. "Amelia, you do not have to rush into anything. There are options." "What options?" "Your father wants me gone. I have no money, no family, nowhere to go. Those are not options. Those are just delays before the inevitable. The frustration in her voice cut at him. Elliot took a breath, making a decision that would probably change everything. You could stay, not as a guest, as help. We need someone to manage the house, cook the meals. My father and I are not exactly skilled at domestic work. If you stayed on as our housekeeper, you would earn your keep, and you would have a place to live while you figure out what you really want to do. Amelia stared at him. You are offering me a job, yes. The pay would not be much, but it would be room and board and a small wage, enough to save up some money so you have choices later. Why would you do that? Your father will be furious. Let me worry about my father. Elliot held her gaze. Will you at least think about it? She was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Then she nodded slowly. All right, I will think about it. That afternoon, Elliot approached his father with the idea. As expected, Thomas was not pleased. You want to hire her as a housekeeper. Have you lost your mind? We need one. The house is a disaster. We live on cold beans and burnt bread. Ma would be horrified if she could see how we have let things go. That is different from hiring some stranger who wandered onto our property. She is not a stranger anymore. And she needs work. We need help. It solves both problems. Thomas rubbed his jaw, a sign that he was actually considering it. What if she is trouble? What if people talk? Let them talk. When have you ever cared what people think? Elliot pressed his advantage. Give her a month. If it does not work out, we will find her something else. But I think it will work. She is capable and she needs this chance. You are sweet on her, Thomas said bluntly. Elliot did not deny it. Maybe I am, but that does not change the fact that this is a good idea for everyone. Finally, grudgingly, Thomas nodded. 1 month. But she pulls her weight, broken arm or not, and if there is any trouble, she goes. Understood? Understood. When Elliot told Amelia that evening, her relief was palpable. Thank you, she said, and this time there were tears in her eyes, the good kind. You have given me something I have not had in a long time. What is that? Hope. The weeks that followed were some of the happiest of Elliot's life. Amelia proved to be an excellent housekeeper, despite her injury, somehow managing to keep the house clean, prepare decent meals, and even tackle some of the mending and other tasks that had been neglected since his mother's death. She moved through the rooms like a gentle wind, bringing order and warmth to spaces that had felt cold and empty for too long. But more than that, she brought conversation. In the evenings, after his father had gone to bed, Elliot would sit with Amelia in the parlor, and they would talk about everything and nothing. She told him about growing up in Portland, about her mother who had loved books and taught Amelia to read when most people thought education was wasted on girls. She told him about the small freedom she had treasured in her marriage, the moments when Jacob was away and she could be herself. She told him her dreams, small and large, to see the ocean, to own a piece of land, to never be afraid again. In turn, Elliot told her about his childhood, about his mother's kindness and his father's sternness, about the weight of knowing he would inherit the ranch someday and wondering if that was enough. He told her about the loneliness of working the land with only his own thoughts for company, about the way he sometimes felt trapped by duty and expectation. You should leave, Amelia said one night, surprising him. If you are unhappy here, you should go somewhere else, try something new. I cannot leave my father to run the ranch alone. He is getting older and the work is hard. Hire hands. Use some of the ranch profits to pay good men to do the work. Then you would be free. Free to do what? Whatever you want. She leaned forward, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. You could travel, see other places. You could try your hand at business in town. You could do anything, Elliot. What about you? What would you do if you were truly free? Amelia sat back, her expression turning thoughtful. I would want a home. Not a big place, just somewhere that was mine, where no one could tell me what to do or how to do it. Maybe a little house with a garden, near enough to town for company but far enough for peace. And I would want someone to share it with, someone kind and good. The way she said it, the way she looked at him when she spoke those last words, made Elliot's heart race. He wanted to reach across the space between them, take her hand, tell her that he could be that someone. But he held back, afraid of moving too fast, of ruining the fragile connection growing between them. As September arrived and the heat of summer began to give way to cooler temperatures, Amelia's arm healed steadily. Elliot checked it regularly, pleased with the progress. The swelling had gone down, and the bone was knitting properly. Soon he would be able to remove the splint, and she would have full use of the arm again, though it would take time to rebuild the strength. His father had softened toward Amelia, grudgingly admitting that having her around made life easier. He still did not say much to her directly, but he had stopped complaining about her presence, which was as close to approval as Thomas Garrison ever got. One afternoon in mid-September, Elliot and Amelia rode into Walla Walla together to purchase supplies. It was her first time leaving the ranch since she had arrived, and he watched her take in the town with curious eyes. Walla Walla was growing, with new buildings going up along Main Street, more people arriving every month drawn by the promise of good land and opportunity. They stopped at the general store, where Elliot introduced Amelia to the proprietor, a friendly man named Simmons who had known Elliot since childhood. "Good to see you have someone sensible keeping house now," Simmons said with a wink. "Your ma would be pleased." While Amelia selected the items they needed, Elliot found himself watching her, noting the easy way she moved through the store, the confidence in her bearing that had been missing when she first arrived. She was healing, not just physically but in deeper ways, and he could see the woman she might have been if life had been kinder emerging from the shadows of her past. On the ride back to the ranch, laden with supplies, Amelia was quiet. Finally she said, "Thank you for bringing me today. It felt good to be out in the world again." "You are welcome anytime. You are not a prisoner at the ranch, Amelia." "I know. But sometimes it feels safer there, away from people who might ask questions or make judgments. No one here knows your story unless you tell them. As far as anyone is concerned, you are our housekeeper. That is all they need to know." She smiled at him, and the warmth of it made his chest tighten. "You are a good man, Elliot Garrison." "I am just a man," he said, "trying to do right. That is what makes you good." That night, after dinner, Thomas surprised them both by speaking directly to Amelia for one of the few times since she had arrived. "You have done well here," he said gruffly. "The house has not looked this good since my wife died, and the meals are better than anything Elliot or I could manage." "Thank you, sir," Amelia said, clearly startled. "I suppose what I am saying is that the month is up, but you can stay on if you want. We will make the arrangement permanent with a proper wage." Elliot saw the relief and gratitude flash across Amelia's face. "I would like that very much." "Thank you." After Thomas had gone to bed, Elliot and Amelia sat together in the parlor as had become their habit. The fire crackled softly, and outside the wind was picking up, carrying the first hints of the autumn to come. "Your father is not as harsh as he pretends to be," Amelia said. "No. He is just not good at expressing softer feelings. My mother was the one who could draw that out of him. After she died, he closed himself off. Grief does strange things to people." "Yes." Elliot hesitated, then asked the question that had been on his mind for weeks. "Are you grieving? For your husband, I mean, despite everything?" Amelia considered this carefully. "No, I am grieving for the years I lost, for the person I might have been if I had never met him, but I am not grieving for Jacob. Is that terrible? No, it is honest." She looked at him, her dark eyes reflecting the firelight. "Can I tell you something? Anything? I am happy here. Happier than I have been in so long. I wake up in the morning and there is no dread, no fear of what the day will bring. I go to sleep at night and feel safe. You and your father have given me that, and I do not know how to repay it." "You do not need to repay anything. You work hard. You have earned your place here. It is more than that, though." Amelia shifted in her chair, turning to face him more fully. "Elliot, I need you to know that I value your friendship more than I can say. These weeks, our conversations, the way you have treated me with respect and kindness, it has meant everything." Elliot's heart was pounding now. "I value your friendship too, Amelia, more than you know. I am saying this badly." She took a breath. "What I mean is, if there could be more than friendship someday when enough time has passed and it would be appropriate, I would welcome that. But I do not want to presume, and I do not want to ruin what we have now by speaking too soon." For a moment, Elliot could not breathe. Then he reached across the space between them and took her hand, the good one, the one without the splint. Her fingers were warm and strong, and they curled around his like they belonged there. "You are not presuming," he said quietly. "And you are not ruining anything. The truth is, I have felt something for you almost from the moment you rode onto this ranch. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself it was too soon, that you needed time to heal. But every day I spend with you, that feeling grows stronger. I care about you, Amelia, more than I have ever cared about anyone." Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I care about you too. I did not think I would ever trust a man again, let alone have feelings for one. But you are different. You are kind and patient and good, and you make me want to believe in happy endings again." Elliot stood and drew her up with him, mindful of her arm. They stood close, so close he could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes, could feel the warmth of her breath. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. Amelia answered by kissing him back, her good hand coming up to rest against his chest. The kiss deepened, becoming something more certain, more real. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. "I have wanted to do that for weeks," Elliot admitted. "I have wanted you to," Amelia said, and then laughed, a sound of pure joy. "Is this happening? Are we really doing this, if you want to, but we should take it slow. You have been through so much, and I do not want to rush you into anything. I appreciate that. But Elliot, I have spent 3 years of my life being afraid and controlled. I do not want to be afraid anymore. If this is what I want and you want it too, then we should reach for it." "What about people talking? You are a widow. There are rules about mourning periods and propriety." "I do not care about rules that were made by people who never had to live the life I lived. Jacob does not deserve my grief or my pretense of grief. I will not waste any more of my life on him." The fierceness in her voice made Elliot love her even more, though he was not quite ready to say that word aloud yet. Instead, he kissed her again, and it felt like a promise, like the beginning of something that could be truly good. Over the following weeks, as September turned into October and the leaves began to change color, Elliot and Amelia navigated their new relationship carefully. In front of Thomas, they remained appropriately distant, though Elliot suspected his father knew something had shifted between them. In private, they grew closer, stealing moments together in the parlor after Thomas had gone to bed, or taking rides together through the rangeland when work allowed. Elliot removed Amelia's splint in early October, pleased with how well the arm had healed. She flexed her fingers, testing the range of motion, and smiled when everything worked as it should. "It aches a bit, but it feels wonderful to have it free again," she said. "You will need to be gentle with it for a while, build the strength back slowly." "I will. Thank you, Elliot, for everything. You saved me in more ways than one." He kissed her then, there in the kitchen with the afternoon sun streaming through the windows, and felt the rightness of it settle into his bones. By mid-October, Elliot knew he wanted to marry Amelia. The certainty of it was absolute, unwavering. But he was not sure how to approach it, or if it was too soon despite her insistence that she was ready to move forward with her life. The decision was made for him one evening when Thomas brought up the subject first. "You are going to marry that girl," Thomas said over dinner. It was not a question. Elliot glanced at Amelia, who had gone still with her fork halfway to her mouth. "I would like to, yes, if she will have me." "Of course I will," Amelia said softly. Thomas grunted. "Good. It is about time you settled down. Your mother always wanted grandchildren before she died, but you were too picky. At least now I might live long enough to see one." It was possibly the most sentimental thing Thomas had said in years. Elliot felt a rush of gratitude for his father, for this gruff acceptance that was as close to a blessing as he would ever get. "We should wait until spring to marry," Amelia said. "Give people time to get used to the idea. A year of mourning is traditional, but 6 months seems reasonable given the circumstances." "If that is what you want," Elliot agreed, though part of him wanted to ride into town that very night and find a preacher. But Amelia was right. Despite her feelings about Jacob, there would be talk if they married too soon. Better to wait, to let the gossip die down, to build their foundation strong before facing the scrutiny that would come. Winter arrived early that year, with snow falling in late November and temperatures dropping sharply. The ranch settled into the quiet rhythm of cold weather work, and Amelia made the house warm and welcoming against the chill outside. She baked bread and pies, kept the fires going, and filled the rooms with the scent of pine boughs and cinnamon. One evening in December, as they sat together by the fire, Amelia said, "I want to tell you something I have never told anyone." Elliot set aside the book he had been reading. "I am listening. When I was married to Jacob, during the worst times, I used to imagine a different life. I would picture myself somewhere far away, with a good man who treated me kindly, in a house that felt like home. I would hold onto that image like a lifeline, telling myself that someday, somehow, I would find my way there." She looked at him, her eyes shining. "This is that life, Elliot. You are that man. I found my way here, and it is more than I ever dared to hope for." Elliot pulled her close, feeling the weight of her words settle around them like a blessing. "I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret finding your way to me." "I could never regret it. You gave me back myself." They talked late into the night, making plans for their future. They would marry in April, when the weather was better and the wildflowers were blooming. They would invite the neighbors and have a celebration, modest but joyful. And afterward, they would continue to run the ranch together, building a life that was truly theirs. The winter passed slowly, each day bringing them closer to spring and the promise of their wedding. Elliot used the quiet months to work on small projects around the house, fixing things that had been broken or neglected, making improvements that would please Amelia. He built her a bookshelf for the parlor and surprised her with a dozen books purchased on a trip to town. He repaired the rocking chair on the porch and painted the trim around the windows. Amelia, for her part, began to embroider linens for their household, stitching patterns of wheat and wildflowers into tablecloths and pillowcases. She made curtains for their bedroom, choosing fabric the color of the summer sky. She planned menus and made lists, her excitement building as the wedding drew closer. In March, Thomas called Elliot into his study for a private conversation. "I want you to have something," the older man said, pulling a small wooden box from his desk drawer. Inside was a simple gold ring with a small diamond, worn smooth with age. This was your mother's. I gave it to her when we married. She would want Amelia to have it." Elliot felt his throat tighten. "Thank you, Pa. This means everything. Your mother would have liked that girl. They have the same kind of strength, the kind that bends but does not break." Thomas cleared his throat roughly. "You have chosen well, son. I am proud of you." It was the first time his father had said those words in Elliot's memory. He clasped the older man's shoulder, unable to speak past the emotion clogging his throat. The night before the wedding, Amelia stayed with a neighbor family to observe tradition. Elliot spent the evening restless and unable to settle, pacing the house until Thomas finally told him to go to bed and stop wearing a hole in the floor. The wedding day dawned clear and bright, one of those perfect April mornings when the world seems full of possibility. The ceremony was held at the small church in Walla Walla, with neighbors and friends filling the pews. Amelia wore a simple white dress that she had sewn herself, with lace at the collar and cuffs, and she carried wildflowers that Elliot had picked that morning. When she walked down the aisle, Elliot felt his heart stutter. She was beautiful, radiant with happiness, and when she took his hand at the altar, he knew with absolute certainty that he was the luckiest man alive. They spoke their vows in clear, steady voices, promising to love and honor each other through all the days of their lives. When the preacher declared them husband and wife, Elliot kissed Amelia with all the love and joy he had been holding inside, and the church erupted in applause. The celebration afterward was simple but heartfelt, with food and dancing and well wishes from their community. Thomas even smiled, though he pretended it was because of the whiskey. As the sun set and the party began to wind down, Elliot and Amelia slipped away, riding back to the ranch together under a sky full of stars. That night, in the bedroom they would now share, Amelia came to him with trust and joy, and they loved each other with a tenderness and passion that spoke of new beginnings and old wounds finally healed. Afterward, lying in his arms, Amelia whispered, "I love you, Elliot Garrison." "I love you too, Amelia Garrison." Hearing her new name, the one that tied her to him forever, made Elliot smile in the darkness. They fell asleep tangled together, and when he woke in the morning with her still beside him, warm and real and his, he sent up a silent prayer of gratitude. The years that followed were full and rich. Amelia proved to be not just a skilled housekeeper but a partner in the truest sense, helping Elliot manage the ranch books, offering ideas for improvements, working alongside him in the garden and with the animals. She had a gift for handling horses and soon took over much of the training, gentling young colts with patience and understanding. Thomas lived 3 more years after their wedding, long enough to meet his grandson, born in the winter of 1880. They named him William Thomas Garrison, and the old man held the baby with surprising tenderness, his stern face softening in ways Elliot had never seen. "He has your mother's eyes," Thomas said, and there were tears in his own. When Thomas died peacefully in his sleep in the spring of 1881, Elliot grieved deeply, but found comfort in knowing his father had lived long enough to see him happy, and settled with a family of his own. They buried Thomas next to Elliot's mother on a hill overlooking the ranch, and Amelia stood beside her husband with their son in her arms, offering silent strength. With Thomas gone, Elliot and Amelia became the sole owners of the Double G Ranch. They ran it together, making decisions as partners, and the ranch prospered under their joint management. They hired good hands, treated them fairly, and built a reputation for honesty and quality. In 1882, Amelia gave birth to twin daughters, Rose and Emma, who filled the house with laughter and chaos. William adored his little sisters, following them around with protective devotion that made both Elliot and Amelia smile. As the children grew, Amelia proved to be a wonderful mother, patient and loving but firm when necessary. She taught all three children to read and write, to respect others, and to value kindness above all else. Elliot would often find her in the evening, reading to the children from her growing collection of books, or telling them stories of the world beyond the ranch. The years passed in a happy blur of seasons and small moments. William learning to ride, the twins playing in the garden, family dinners around the big kitchen table, quiet evenings on the porch watching the sun set over the rangeland. There were hard times too, droughts and harsh winters, the constant challenges of ranch life. But they faced everything together, and that made all the difference. In the summer of 1890, as they celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary, Elliot and Amelia sat on the porch after the children had gone to bed. The night was warm and clear, full of cricket song and the distant sound of cattle. "You ever think about that day you rode onto this ranch?" Elliot asked, taking her hand. "All the time," Amelia said. "I was so scared and hurting and lost. I thought I had nowhere to go, nothing to live for. You had a broken arm and a dead husband and a whole life ahead of you that you could not see yet. And you set my bone and asked me who broke it. No one had ever asked me that before. No one had ever cared enough to ask." She turned to look at him, her dark eyes as beautiful as they had been that first day. "You saved my life, Elliot. Not just by setting my arm, but by seeing me, really seeing me, and treating me like I mattered. You did matter. You do matter. You are everything to me. And you are everything to me." Amelia leaned over and kissed him, soft and sweet. "I love you. I will love you until my last breath and beyond. And I love you. Forever." They sat together in the comfortable silence of a couple who knew each other completely, who had built something strong and good from the broken pieces they had started with. The ranch spread out around them, the land they had worked and loved, the home they had made together. Inside the house, their children slept safely in their beds, dreaming whatever dreams children dream. And on the porch, Elliot and Amelia held hands and watched the stars, two people who had found each other in the wilderness of the world and chosen to hold on tight. The years continued to unfold with their particular mix of joy and challenge. William grew into a strong, responsible young man who loved the ranch as much as his father did. He had inherited Elliot's calm demeanor and Amelia's gift with horses, and by the time he was 16, he was managing much of the day-to-day work with the livestock. Rose and Emma were different from each other in almost every way. Rose was adventurous and bold, always climbing trees and sneaking off to explore the far reaches of the ranch. Emma was quieter, preferring to spend her time with books and drawing, capturing the beauty of the landscape in careful pencil sketches that covered the walls of her room. In 1894, when William was 14 and the twins were 12, Amelia discovered she was pregnant again. The news surprised them both, as they had thought their family was complete. But the surprise quickly gave way to joy, and in the spring of 1895, Amelia gave birth to another son whom they named Samuel. Samuel was a sunny, easy baby who brought fresh energy to the household. William and the twins doted on their little brother, and Elliot found himself falling in love with fatherhood all over again. Watching Amelia with Samuel, seeing the gentle way she held him and sang to him, reminded Elliot of all the reasons he had fallen in love with her in the first place. As the 19th century drew to a close, the world around them was changing. Walla Walla had grown from a small frontier town into a proper city, with electric lights and telephones and all the modern conveniences. The railroad connected them to Seattle and Portland and beyond, bringing new people and new ideas. But the Double G Ranch remained much as it had always been, a place of honest work and simple pleasures. Elliot and Amelia had no desire to chase the latest trends or modernize for the sake of modernizing. They kept what worked and adapted when necessary, but always with an eye toward preserving the life they had built together. In 1898, William announced that he was courting Sarah Jenkins, the daughter of a neighboring rancher. Elliot and Amelia liked Sarah immediately, recognizing in her the same kind of strength and good sense that had drawn them together. When William asked for their blessing to marry, they gave it gladly. The wedding was held in the summer of 1899, a grand affair that brought together families from all over the valley. As Elliot watched his son marry the woman he loved, he felt the strange duality of pride and nostalgia. Joy for William's future tinged with the bittersweet knowledge that his boy was now a man with his own life to lead. But William and Sarah had no intention of leaving the ranch. They built a small house on the property, not far from the main house, and continued to work the land alongside Elliot and Amelia. The arrangement suited everyone, and soon the ranch felt even more alive with the presence of the young couple. In 1900, Sarah gave birth to a daughter, making Elliot and Amelia grandparents for the first time. Holding his granddaughter, a tiny perfect thing named Grace, Elliot felt time collapse in on itself. He thought of his own father holding William, of the chain of generations stretching back and forward, all of them connected by love and family and the land they worked. "She is beautiful," Amelia said, standing beside him and peering down at the baby. "She has your eyes, Will." "She has Ma's eyes," William corrected gently, "just like I do." It was true. Grace had the same warm brown eyes that Elliot's mother had passed down to him and that he had given to William. Seeing them in his granddaughter's face felt like a gift, a reminder that nothing was ever truly lost as long as it lived on in the people we loved. As the new century began, the twins grew into young women with their own dreams and ambitions. Rose announced that she wanted to study veterinary medicine, a shocking declaration for a woman in that era, but one that Elliot and Amelia supported wholeheartedly. They helped her apply to colleges, wrote letters of recommendation, and saw her off to Washington State College with pride and a little sadness. Emma decided to stay closer to home, taking a job at the library in Walla Walla while continuing to develop her artistic talents. She sold drawings and paintings at the local mercantile, earning enough to be independent while still living at home and helping with Samuel, who was now a boisterous 5-year-old. In 1903, tragedy struck when Sarah died in childbirth, along with the baby boy she had been carrying. The loss devastated William and cast a shadow over the entire family. Grace, now 3 years old, was too young to fully understand why her mother was gone, and watching William try to explain it to her was one of the hardest things Elliot had ever witnessed. In the dark days that followed, Amelia was a pillar of strength. She moved William and Grace into the main house, took over caring for the little girl, and gently coaxed her son through his grief. She knew what it was like to lose a spouse, though her circumstances had been vastly different, and she used that understanding to help William find his way back to living. "It does not feel like it now, but you will be all right," she told him one night, after Grace had fallen asleep. "Grief changes you, but it does not have to destroy you. You have your daughter and she needs you. That will be enough to keep you going until you remember how to live again." William nodded, though his eyes were hollow. "Did you ever think you would love again, after your first husband died?" Amelia glanced at Elliot, who was sitting quietly in the corner. "I did not love my first husband, not by the end. But yes, I thought I would never trust anyone enough to love them. Then I met your father, and he showed me that not all men are cruel, that love can be safe and good. You will find that again someday, Will, when you are ready." It took time, but William slowly healed. He threw himself into work on the ranch and devoted himself to raising Grace, who grew into a bright, happy child despite the loss of her mother. Amelia helped with her granddaughter, teaching her to read and cook and tend the garden, passing down all the skills and knowledge that she had acquired over the years. Rose returned from college in 1906 with her degree and a determination to open a veterinary practice in Walla Walla. She became one of the first female veterinarians in Washington state, facing skepticism and outright hostility from some quarters, but winning over clients with her skill and dedication. Elliot and Amelia were fiercely proud of her, celebrating every victory and offering comfort after every setback. Emma continued her quiet work at the library and with her art, never seeking the spotlight but finding deep satisfaction in her life. In 1907, she married a teacher named James Foster, a gentle, bookish man who loved her deeply and appreciated her talents. They settled in Walla Walla, close enough to visit often but with their own life and their own dreams. Samuel grew into a tall, lanky teenager with his father's calm nature and his mother's fierce loyalty to family. He had no interest in ranching, preferring instead to tinker with mechanical things, taking apart and reassembling anything he could get his hands on. Elliot and Amelia encouraged this interest, even when it meant their son spent more time in a makeshift workshop than in the saddle. In 1910, on their 20th wedding anniversary, Elliot surprised Amelia with a trip to the coast. They left the ranch in William's capable hands and traveled by train to Seattle, then on to a small inn overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was the first time either of them had seen the ocean, and they spent hours walking along the beach, marveling at the vastness of it, the endless roll of the waves. "You remember when you told me you dreamed of seeing the ocean?" Elliot asked, holding her hand as they watched the sunset paint the water in shades of gold and pink. "I remember. I had so many dreams then, things I thought I would never get to do." "Have we done them all?" Amelia smiled. "We have done more than I ever dreamed possible." "You gave me a life I did not dare hope for, Elliot. You gave me love and safety and a family and a home. The ocean is beautiful, but it is just one more gift in a lifetime of gifts." "You gave me just as much," Elliot said. "Before you, I was just going through the motions, working the ranch because it was expected, not because I loved it. You made everything mean something. You made me want to build a life worth living." They kissed there on the beach as the sun dipped below the horizon. Two people who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful together. The years rolled on, bringing more changes and challenges. In 1912, William met and married a widow named Catherine, a kind woman with a young son of her own. Grace was thrilled to have a mother again and a brother to boot, and the blended family settled into a warm, comfortable rhythm. Catherine proved to be a wonderful addition to the family, fitting seamlessly into the life of the ranch. In 1914, the world was shaken by the outbreak of war in Europe. Though America did not enter the conflict immediately, the tension and uncertainty affected everyone. Samuel, now 19, talked about enlisting, but Elliot and Amelia begged him to wait, to see if the war would end before America was drawn in. Thankfully, Samuel agreed, and by the time America did enter the war in 1917, he was married with a baby daughter of his own. The Army did not call him up, and he was able to stay home, working in a factory that produced parts for military vehicles. It was not the adventure he had imagined, but it was important work, and Elliot and Amelia were grateful that their youngest son was safe. Rose never married. dedicating her life instead to her veterinary practice and to various causes she believed in, including women's suffrage and animal welfare. She was a force of nature, and Elliot often joked that no man would be brave enough to take her on. Rose would just laugh and say that was probably true. Emma and James had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and lived a quiet, happy life in town. Emma never stopped drawing, and in 1920, she published a book of sketches and observations about life in the Washington Territory, which became a local bestseller and brought her a measure of fame she had never sought. In 1925, Elliot and Amelia celebrated their 35th wedding anniversary surrounded by children and grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The house was full of noise and laughter. Multiple generations gathered to honor the couple who had built this family from nothing. That evening, after everyone had gone home or to bed, Elliot and Amelia sat once again on the porch, their favorite spot, holding hands as they had done for decades. 35 years, Amelia marveled. It seems impossible. It feels like yesterday that I rode onto this ranch with a broken arm and a broken life. You were never broken, Elliot said. Hurt, yes, battered, but never broken. I knew that the moment I looked into your eyes. You saw something in me that I could not see in myself. That is one of the greatest gifts you ever gave me. We gave each other gifts, Elliot said. Every day for 35 years. Amelia leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out one by one. The ranch was quiet now, the animals settled for the night, the endless work paused until morning. But in that pause, in that stillness, there was peace and satisfaction and the deep knowledge that they had lived well and loved deeply. You have any regrets? Amelia asked softly. Elliot thought about it carefully. No, not a single one. Everything we went through, everything we survived, it brought us here. How could I regret any of it? Not even the hard times. Especially not the hard times. They taught us what we were made of. They showed us that we could weather anything as long as we were together. You are right. Amelia lifted her head and kissed his cheek. I would not change a single thing. This life, this family, this love, it is everything I ever wanted and more than I ever dreamed possible. They sat until the moon rose high overhead, then made their way inside to bed, moving a little slower than they once had, but still hand in hand, still together. The years continued their steady march. In 1928, William took over full management of the ranch, as Elliot was now 68 and ready to step back from the hardest physical labor. Elliot still worked, of course, unable to fully retire, but now he did the lighter tasks and spent more time with his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, teaching them about the land and the animals and the work that had defined his life. Amelia, at 63, was still vibrant and active, though she too had slowed down. She spent her days tending her garden, which had grown over the years into a thing of beauty, full of flowers and vegetables and herbs. She cooked for the family, watched over the youngest children, and read voraciously from her ever-growing collection of books. In the spring of 1930, Elliot woke one morning to find Amelia sitting in bed beside him, looking out the window at the sunrise. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, reaching for her hand. "Everything," she said with a soft smile. "How we started, where we are now, how much life we have lived together. Are you feeling all right?" "I am feeling grateful. I am feeling lucky. I am feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. That is how I feel every day I wake up beside you." She turned to look at him, and in the soft morning light, he could still see traces of the young woman who had ridden onto his ranch 52 years ago with a broken arm and a bruised spirit. But he could also see everything she had become in the years since, strong, confident, loved, and loving in return. "I love you, Elliot Garrison," she said, as she had said countless times over the decades. "I love you, Amelia Garrison," he replied, as he always did, meaning it just as much as the first time. They spent the day together, taking a slow walk around the ranch, visiting with William and Catherine and Grace, who now had children of her own. They sat in the garden while Amelia pointed out all the plants she had added over the years, telling stories about where each one had come from. They ate dinner with the family, enjoying the noise and chaos of multiple generations gathered around the table. That night, as they settled into bed, Amelia curled against Elliot's side as she always did. "This was a perfect day," she murmured sleepily. "Every day with you is perfect," Elliot replied. He felt her smile against his chest, felt her breathing slow and deepen as she drifted off to sleep. He stayed awake a little longer, holding her close, thinking about the incredible journey they had taken together. From that hot August day, when she had appeared like an answer to a prayer he had not known he was saying, through all the years of building a life and a family, to this moment of perfect peace, it had been the greatest adventure of his life. Elliot finally closed his eyes, content in a way that went bone deep. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. They always had. They always would. The seasons turned as they always did. Summer gave way to fall, fall to winter, winter to spring. The ranch thrived under William's management. The family continued to grow, and Elliot and Amelia settled into the golden years of their life together with grace and gratitude. In 1932, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with a massive gathering that brought together everyone they loved. The whole valley seemed to turn out to honor the couple who had become pillars of the community, known for their kindness, their integrity, and the deep love they had for each other. Rose gave a speech that made everyone laugh and cry, talking about how her parents had shown her what real partnership looked like, how they had supported her dreams even when society said women could not do what she wanted to do. Emma read a poem she had written about love and time, and the way two people could become one while still remaining themselves. William, usually not one for public speaking, stood up and simply said, "Everything good in my life came from these two people. I hope I can be half the parent and partner they have been." Samuel, now a successful engineer with grown children of his own, talked about how his parents had taught him that following your own path was not just acceptable but necessary, that you did not have to do what everyone expected if it was not what your heart called you to do. When it was their turn to speak, Elliot and Amelia stood together in front of their assembled family and friends. Elliot spoke first. "50 years ago, a woman rode onto my ranch with a broken arm and a story that would have broken most people. But she was not broken. She was one of the strongest people I have ever known. Setting her arm that day was easy. Convincing her to stay, to trust me, to build a life with me, that was the hardest and best thing I have ever done. Amelia, you are my partner, my love, my best friend. You made my life worth living. Thank you for 50 beautiful years." Amelia wiped tears from her eyes and took her turn. "When I arrived here, I had nothing. No family, no home, no hope. Elliot gave me all of those things, but more than that, he gave me back myself. He saw me as a person, as someone who mattered, and he treated me with kindness and respect from the very first moment. He asked me who had broken my arm, and in asking, he told me that what had happened to me was not right, that I deserved better. That simple question changed my life. Everything I am, everything we have built together, started with that question and the care that followed it. I love you, Elliot, more today than ever before." There was not a dry eye in the crowd. People clapped and cheered, and then the party continued with music and dancing and more food than anyone could possibly eat. It was a celebration of love and family, and the power of two people choosing each other every single day for 50 years. As the evening wound down and the guests began to depart, Elliot and Amelia found themselves once more on their porch, watching the sun set over the ranch they had built together. 50 years, Amelia said wonderingly. How did we get here so fast, one day at a time, one moment at a time, one choice at a time, and every choice led us here. Every choice led us to each other, and that is all that matters. They sat in silence for a while, content just to be together. Finally, Amelia said, "Elliot, I need you to promise me something. Anything. When my time comes, and I know it will before yours because women age faster and I am older than I look, and my heart is not as strong as it used to be, I need you to promise me that you will not grieve too long. I need you to keep living, to keep being part of this family we built. They will need you and you will need them." Elliot felt his throat tighten. "I cannot imagine this life without you. You will not have to imagine it for a long time yet, but when that day comes, I need to know you will be all right. Promise me." He pulled her close, holding her as if he could keep time itself at bay through sheer force of will. "I promise, though I hope that day is very far away. So do I. I want many more sunsets with you, many more days in our garden, many more nights in your arms. But when the time comes, I will go knowing I was deeply loved, and that is more than most people ever get." They stayed there until the stars came out, until the air grew cool and they had to go inside. And in the warmth of their home, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived, they held each other close and counted their blessings. The years passed gently after that. Elliot and Amelia continued to age, their steps slower, their hair completely gray, but their love as strong as ever. They spent their days in simple pleasures, tending the garden, reading together in the parlor, playing with their ever-growing number of great-grandchildren, taking slow walks around the ranch and remembering all the years they had worked this land together. In 1935, Rose fell ill with pneumonia and died despite the best medical care available. It was a blow to the entire family, but especially to Elliot and Amelia, who had never imagined outliving any of their children. They mourned her together, finding comfort in their shared grief and in the memories of the remarkable woman Rose had been. But life, as it always did, went on. Emma continued to write and draw. Samuel continued to invent and build. William continued to run the ranch with Catherine by his side. The family kept growing, kept changing, kept living. In the spring of 1938, Amelia had a heart attack while working in her garden. Elliot found her there among the flowers, and he rushed her inside and sent for the doctor. She recovered, but they both knew it was a warning. Her heart was failing, and while she might have months or even a year or two left, the end was coming. They did not speak of it much. There was no need. Instead, they focused on making the most of whatever time they had left. They spent every possible moment together, talking about memories, telling old stories, and making sure everyone in the family knew how much they were loved. On a warm evening in June 1938, Amelia grew suddenly tired after dinner. Elliot helped her upstairs to bed, and they lay together as they had thousands of times before, her head on his chest, his arms around her. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for saving me, for loving me, for giving me the most beautiful life imaginable. Thank you for choosing me, for staying, for building this life with me. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Amelia. And you are the best thing that ever happened to me." They lay in silence for a while, and then Amelia spoke one last time. "Do you remember what you asked me that first day when you set my arm? I asked who broke it for you. Yes. And in asking, you told me that I mattered, that what had been done to me was not right. No one had ever said that before. That was when I started to fall in love with you, right there in that moment. I fell in love with you then too. The moment I saw the strength in your eyes, the determination to survive no matter what, I knew you were special. We were lucky to find each other. The luckiest. Amelia sighed softly, contentedly. I love you, Elliot Garrison, forever and always. I love you, Amelia Garrison. Forever and always. She fell asleep then, her breathing slow and even. Elliot held her through the night, memorizing the feel of her in his arms, the weight and warmth of her, the steady rhythm of her heart against his. Somewhere deep down, he knew this was the last time, and he wanted to remember every second. When the sun rose and sent golden light streaming through the window, Amelia took one final, peaceful breath and was gone. Elliot held her for a long time, tears streaming down his face, but there was also peace in his heart. She had died as she had lived the last 50 years, in his arms, surrounded by love, knowing she was cherished beyond measure. It was the ending she deserved. The funeral was beautiful, attended by what seemed like the entire valley. Person after person stood to speak about Amelia, about her kindness and strength, about the way she had helped so many people over the years. Emma read another poem. William spoke about what a wonderful mother and grandmother she had been. Rose's children and Samuel's children, and all the grandchildren and great-grandchildren shared their memories and their love. Elliot sat through it all, holding Grace's hand on one side and Samuel's on the other, drawing strength from the family that he and Amelia had created together. This was her legacy, all these people who carried pieces of her forward into the future. She would live on in them, in the stories they told, in the love they shared. They buried Amelia on the hill beside Elliot's parents, under a beautiful stone that read, Amelia Wright Garrison. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, and friend. She showed up broken and became whole through love. 1875–1938. In the days that followed, Elliot kept his promise. He grieved, but he did not let the grief consume him. He continued to be part of the family, to sit with the grandchildren and great-grandchildren, to take his walks around the ranch, to live. It was what Amelia would have wanted, and honoring her wishes was one last way to love her. But at night, alone in their bed, he would sometimes hold her pillow and whisper to her, telling her about his day, sharing his thoughts, maintaining the conversation they had kept up for 50 years. He told her how much he missed her, how empty the house felt without her presence, how he looked forward to the day when they would be together again. That day came sooner than his children would have liked, but probably not soon enough for Elliot. In the winter of 1939, just 7 months after Amelia's death, Elliot caught a bad cold that turned into pneumonia. Despite the best efforts of the doctors and his family, he declined rapidly. On a cold January night, with William and Catherine sitting beside his bed and the rest of the family gathered in the house below, Elliot prepared to take his leave. Do not be sad, he told William, his voice weak but clear. I have lived a long, full life. I have been blessed beyond measure. And now I get to see your mother again. That is not sad. That is a gift. I love you, Pa, William said, tears running down his face. I love you too, son. You and all your siblings, all my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. You are my legacy, the proof that the love your mother and I shared was real and powerful and good. Never forget that. As his breathing grew more labored, Elliot's mind drifted back to that August day in 1878 when a woman with a broken arm had ridden into his life and changed everything. He remembered the way the sun had glinted off her dark hair, the pain and determination in her eyes, the feeling of rightness when he had asked her who had broken her arm and seen understanding dawn in her face. He remembered their wedding day, the birth of each of their children, the countless small moments that had made up their life together. He remembered her laugh, her touch, the way she fit perfectly in his arms. He remembered 50 years of love and partnership and joy. And as he took his last breath, Elliot smiled because he could see her waiting for him in the distance, young and beautiful and whole, reaching out her hand to take his once more. He was going home. They buried Elliot beside Amelia on that hill overlooking the ranch. The stone read, Elliot Garrison, beloved husband, father, grandfather, and friend. He asked the right questions and loved the right way. 1851–1939. The Double G Ranch continued for generations after them, passed down through William's line and then to his children and grandchildren. The family grew and changed and spread across the country, but they never forgot the love story that had started it all. They told it to their children and their children's children, keeping alive the memory of two people who had found each other in the wilderness and built something beautiful. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the sun was setting over the rangeland, people swore they could see two figures sitting on the porch of the old ranch house, holding hands and watching the stars come out, their love transcending even death, eternal as the land itself.